Hello, my name is Adam Blicher. I have promised to do a video for you guys, and I will go through all of the questions in this video and then send it over to you guys. So first of all, I'm asked to introduce myself. My name is Adam Blicher, and I am a sports psychology consultant. I have mainly been working within tennis, been very fortunate to work for the Danish Tennis Federation, doing camps and travels with the Danish national junior teams. I've also been very privileged to go around the world, see different tennis academies, interning at quite a few. And in my day-to-day job today, as it is now, I work with a multitude of different athletes, all with a purpose of enhancing their quality in their everyday life and also helping them be the human beings, but also the athletes they want to be, both when it's easy, but also when it's super tough. Second, where I'm from Denmark, originally born on Greenland, where there is a lot of ice and snow. 3, tell us about your tennis background. So I stumbled into tennis by coincidence when I was 5. My dad was at a meeting in the local tennis club and I was with him. I got a racket and a foam ball, and there was a wall. I started hitting against the wall and thought it was super fun. I didn't start immediately to tennis because there was no kids my age playing, so I went to the tennis club, but I was a little bit afraid of all of the big guys. So when I was 6, I officially started. Then I was practicing a lot. I was competing nationally, a little bit internationally, Tennis Europe and ITF. And then at 17, I would say, it was very clear to me that I shouldn't pursue any more tennis full time. So then I was lucky that the federation picked me up as a sparring partner and as a hitting coach. Greatest strength in tennis would probably be more relevant as a coach than as a player. But as a player, I would say serve, return, volleys. Not good at the ground strokes. And as a coach, I would hope it would be my ability to create relationships with the ones that I'm practicing with, create trust in the relation. I believe that creating trust is the foundation for development. And I think sometimes if you have a good relation, that's more important than the method that you are using. 5, what or who ignited you to start playing tennis? I think I touched upon that. I was very lucky and fortunate to also have some very good coaches in the club, that in the local club where I grew up. The local club coach definitely facilitated an environment in which I wanted to learn. I had a great influence from a coach called Mark Frösler from the age of 10. He taught me very basic values in life about not complaining, working hard, and those are values that I believe has brought me a long way in life in general, and I'm very grateful for him to teach me that. Not only tennis, but those values are something that I'm not sure I would have got without having been through his training for a couple of years. I think it was very clear to me when I could see that my own level was nowhere near going full time, that I wasn't done with tennis. I still love tennis. I love tennis to this day. I think the day that I will not be as involved in tennis as I am today, I think I will just start playing again myself, because I truly love the sport. I think it's a brilliant game. It's obviously up to the ones that I'm coaching to really describe how I am. I try to be extremely curious on the person behind the player and get to know them, get to understand who they are, how they tick, how I can facilitate an environment in which they can learn. I'm probably the opposite of a dictator, and I know that some players are going off on me because they would like all of the answers. I believe in putting the players in situations where they need to solve problems. And obviously I got some biomechanical principles regarding technique that I would like the players to stick by. But I think it's more important that their technique is shaping around problem solving, because I think that's ultimately what the game is about. The most important thing that I have learned, how different and how similar people are. I believe that it's not nice to put people in boxes, but I believe I've met players and athletes over the year that are so similar, and situations that are so similar, where you struggle with something, and then when you find the key or the solution or how to handle it, it goes again in another situation later on, and it's much easier to solve that situation. So I think results and struggles can be replicated over time, but also think that there is a huge difference on people in general. So whether I feel like there is 10 different person types or whatever I feel like, I think that you need to have a different approach to not everybody, but to different person types and different learning styles. And when you then approach a struggle with one player with a specific learning style or person type, then when you meet that same person type or learning style again, then it's easier to approach that same struggle. 10. What have you learned from mistakes as a tennis coach? I would say making changes right away. I would say that the ego of changing something just because you can see you can make a change, then sometimes I've learned that I need to hold back and not make the change immediately, but gather some trust before I make that change. I think it's a fine line, because sometimes making a change that works can also build some trust, but making a change that doesn't work, even though it's a good change, that will also make the player not believe in you at all. So I'm a little bit more hesitant to make changes now than I was previously, and I build a lot of trust and build on the strength before I even attack something that might be troublesome in the player. I think a personal challenge is creating trust and building belief within the player, both personally and professionally, and not overstepping the barrier so the player is losing respect for you as an authority. Because I really like the human beings behind the tennis players. It's so super important for me to work with the best human beings possible, and then the level matters less. And I'm really engaged in the persons behind the player, but I think there's also a very fine line in order for them to keep the respect. I think first of all, it's important to get the players to understand that pressure is not the problem. We shouldn't take the pressure away. I think it's much more about appreciating that the pressure's there. The great Billie Jean King has said that pressure is a privilege. I think it's a hard concept to buy into, but letting the players understand and know that if they're feeling that pressure, then they're in a good state, or they're in a good place. Because if they were feeling no pressure, they would not be winning anything at all. Because if you're losing a lot, then there's no pressure. The very game of tennis, I think we need to educate the players in the game of tennis. The score system makes it's super tight all the time. I often use the analogy with players that if you don't want to deal with the rain, don't go outside. I think it's a little bit the same competing in tennis. If you don't want to deal with pressure, don't play tennis, because it's going to be there. Then over time we can build a good raincoat for the players so they can learn how to be in the rain. But there is going to be pressure. Even the professionals for sure feel the pressure, which is very evident if you look into interviews from either Rafael Nadal or Stanislav Wawrinka, who are very outspoken about how they deal and manage the pressure. I think from my point of view, because the thing that I find the most interesting is the mental part, is to help them understand that basically they don't need to think positive. They shouldn't try to change who they are. They need to understand who they are, and then they need to decide who they want to be on the court and off the court, and then try to get to know themselves. So in each specific situation, what is going on in their mind when they miss an easy forehand, what is then going on in their mind as a result, and then knowing who they would like to be, because we can't control what we're thinking or feeling. And if we try to, sometimes it might help, but it's a short-term strategy, not a long-term. It's a short-term fix, sorry, but not a long-term strategy. So super important to decide who you want to be because our attitude and how we react, we can always control that, but not how we're feeling inside. 14, what is your philosophy on discipline? That's an interesting one. My philosophy on discipline. I think discipline is important in life in general, not only on the tennis court. I think sport is a vehicle to teach valuable life lessons. So I would like to leave the players in an environment where they have the opportunity to acquire discipline. I think there is a fine line between being a perfectionist and having high standards and a high discipline. I think if you want to really achieve something that is difficult in life, you need a high standard and you need a lot of discipline, especially in the tough times where you're not feeling motivation. I think sometimes we are sitting around waiting for the feeling of motivation, when in reality, I don't believe any player in the world is motivated 365 days a year. I don't for 1 second believe that the players, when they're going for the preseason, that is super, super tough, that when the alarm clock is going off in the morning, that they always feel super motivated and jumping out of bed. But I do think that they are committed 365 days a year, because they know that they need to do some actions in order just to have a chance of becoming who they want to be and reaching their goals. The thing I enjoy the most in coaching is when players contact me after we work together, no matter how long we work together. But if they are contacting me after we finish the working relationship on the court, for whatever reason, then I feel like I created that trust and that bond, and I made a difference in their life, that they trust me so much that they are contacting me afterwards. That is for sure what is making it all worth for me. I sometimes say to the players, being a little bit provocative, that I really don't care how good they get at tennis, but I care about who they become as a human being as a result of their time in tennis, and I truly believe so. I think only a few of us tennis coaches, we all think that we are high performance coaches. I would like to think I'm a high performance coach myself, but the reality is I might never get to work with a tennis player who's making a living of playing tennis. So I think tennis coaching is ultimately for me about something else than working with professional tennis players. I would like to at one point get there. I'm working with athletes from different sports that are making a living on the mental aspect, but in the reality in tennis coaching is that only a few of us are lucky enough to work with the ones making a living. Mainly now I'm offering camps and mental sessions. I'm offering to go on tours with them. Currently, camps and tours are through an agency called EuroElite, that is a Scandinavian tennis academy with no everyday tennis training, but we go on camps and on trips, and the whole concept is based around not making any technical changes whatsoever, but working on tactics and the mental part. The idea to the podcast came from following a guy called Tim Ferriss. He's dissecting high performance within everything. I thought it was super interesting to hear myself. So I was looking for something similar in tennis and couldn't find it. I could only find tennis journalists talking about what has happened in tennis. And then I thought, well, why don't I make something within tennis? Because I would really want to listen to it myself. And I felt like traveling to 20 plus countries, I felt like the conversations I had with coaches out at tournaments were sometimes where I learned more than actually being on the court. So it has been my learning journey, and I've been happy to share it with everyone else, because I truly believe in sharing knowledge and getting inspired by each other, stealing knowledge as much as we can. It's going to be a new year for me in the way that I move back to Denmark. I'm going to do more sports psychology work with different sports than tennis as well. So it's going to be an interesting year, I think. It's also going to be the year where it is my goal to write a book about the podcast and the learnings, gather them all together and get the book out there. There's not a big goal of any financial getting back or any paying for the book necessarily. I think it's going to be a project with promotion and the time put in that is going to go to zero or maybe even minus. But I'm super excited about getting a book out there. Worst tennis related injury. think I've been lucky that I haven't had any major things. Very typically I had an impingement in my shoulder, which I dealt with for 7.5, 8 months. I had an injury in my wrist as well, which was for the same period of time where I started to hit one-handed backhands. But I think in general I haven't been dealing with too many really bad injuries as a tennis player, so that is super nice. Still to this date, I was on a tour when I was 12, together with 12 other, or 11 or 12 other kids from Denmark. It's the first and only time I've been on a trip with so many kids, and we had so much fun during a full week. We often still talk about it, even though a lot of us have had multitude of other experiences with tennis. That one was just absolutely brilliant. So thank you to the Danish Tennis Federation for bringing us when we were super small to Sweden on a great trip for the federation. 21, who do you think is the greatest tennis player of all times? Why? Easily Serena Williams and Roger Federer. I think the numbers speak for themselves. I think the way in which especially Roger has reinvented himself a number of times, how many times he's been judged out of the game. I think Nadal is doing the same now. It's amazing. I doubt how much more Nadal has got. In reality, also Federer. I think it's going to be a super interesting year that we're going to see in tennis. I think Novak is too good not to get back and win slams. So let's see. But for now, definitely Serena and Roger. We'll still say the same. There's no doubt that Rafa is the king of clay, but overall Serena and Roger, I think they are the best. 23, who's your favorite player of next generation? I was lucky to get to see the Yen finals and saw Zverev. He's extremely good. He still has a lot of physical development to do to get stronger, even though I know he's been working with Jess Green for the last 5 years. He's going to be super tough to beat in a couple of years. So I'm super excited about him. On the women's side, it's been a little bumpy for the new ones coming up. Belinda Bencic, Madison Keys. I thought 1.5 years ago, I thought they would be in the top 5 now. They have been struggling. Obviously, I'm excited about Caroline Wozniacki finishing the year strong, and I hope that she can win a slam next year. I think now in the women's game, a lot of the juniors are now coming up, and let's see how much they can make troubles for the established ones. I like on-court coaching. I've just been to 2 tournaments, 10 Pro, which is a new organization organizing tournaments. They've been around for a couple of years now. They have on-court coaching. I really like that, especially for the juniors, helping them to understand themselves and the game and what's going on. So on-court coaching, I'm a huge advocate for in junior tennis. I'm not too sure about on-court coaching in senior tennis. I think it takes some of the charm away from tennis and the battle that it is to stand out there alone in a time span that you don't know how long it's going to be. But in junior tennis, I think it's an amazing idea. I get to play as often as I can, hit or play. I will with the players. But unfortunately, it's not getting to, or I'm not prioritizing as much time as I would like to, simply because I got other obligations that I'd rather do. For instance, sitting and speaking to you guys here instead of being out on the court. 26, who is your favorite hitting buddy? It has to be a weird answer here. I would say my favorite hitting buddy would be the best friends that I got. That's when I enjoy most being out on the court. But it's always fun to hit with the players as well. I think it's always nice to play around with the players and get to understand what their game is actually like to play against. Then it's also easier for me to advise them and tell them that when they're hitting that backhand down the line, it's super difficult to play against them, or when they are accelerating on their forehand short cross court, then they're opening up the court well. And sometimes I think being on the court with them myself is making me understand their game better than looking from the outside. I definitely think tennis is traditionally an early specialization sport. I think it's super important to go early into tennis, but I also think that training in other sports, motivational wise, so you're not burning out, so you're not getting injuries, doing the same sport over and over, is important to a certain extent. I know that Murray was playing football until 14, Nadal the same. Murray's brother Jamie was playing golf until 14. I know that Bouchard was playing volleyball until a quite late age, and Sharapova was playing basket. So CC Bellis, I also know that even though she broke through early, she was also doing other sports until 2 years before she won the first round of US Open. So I think you can definitely do other sports at the same time as tennis. Tennis needs to be the dominant sport, I believe. But doing other sports for motivation and just in general for athleticism is a super good thing, I think. 28, last one. Your quote to live by. I would say right now, when I'm speaking to you guys, I would say discipline equals freedom. I believe a lot in principles and systems to put in habits that will make you reach your goals over time. And I sometimes think that small habits and discipline can create really, really good results over time. I think it's more important to be consistent doing a little than doing a lot and not being consistent. That will be it for me for this time. Thank you a lot if you are watching.